The Mumbai call. They say your voice can take you places. Mine used to lock me in. Back in my small hometown near Nashik, I was the quietest guy in class, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because every time I opened my mouth, someone would laugh. My English wasn't smooth, my accent was thick, and my confidence? Missing in action. You know that feeling when you want to answer the teacher's question but you hear your own voice in your head saying, "Don't. You'll mess up." That was my life. I blended into the background like wallpaper. Nobody expected much from me, not even me. But something shifted the day I got left out of the group presentation. My classmate and I literally said, "It's just easier if someone else speaks. You are kinda hard to understand." That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just stared at myself in the mirror. And then something weird happened. I started talking. Not in my head. Out loud. Broken English, mismatched tenses, but I talked. And the mirror? It didn't laugh. I started this ritual. Every night, after Amma went to sleep and the house fell silent, I would stand in front of that cracked mirror and rehearse sentences from YouTube videos. I wasn't watching the cool stuff. I was deep into videos titled, "How to Speak English Fluently," or "Basic Call Center Conversations." You know the kind, low views, bad lighting, but the information was gold. I mimicked accents, copied intonations, even paused the video to repeat the sentences 3 times. "Good morning, this is Rishi from customer support. How may I help you today?" It sounded silly at first. But slowly, my tongue stopped tripping over words. I started smiling while I spoke. One night, I even caught myself laughing at a joke I made out loud. Alone. That's when I knew I was changing. After my 12th board exams, I didn't do great. Engineering wasn't in the cards, and neither was med school. But one morning, my cousin Priya called from Mumbai. "Hey Rish, I heard they're hiring at a BPO in Andheri. They need people who can speak decent English. You interested?" Decent English, that stuck with me. I didn't think I had it yet. But I had Mirami to back me up. I packed a small bag, told Amma I'd be back with a job, and got on the cheapest train to Mumbai. Sweaty, crowded, loud, everything about the city overwhelmed me. But somehow, I felt like I belonged there. Like my new voice had brought me to a new version of myself. I still remember walking into the call center for the first time, cool air conditioning, glass doors, buzzing energy, and the soft hum of voices saying, "Thank you for calling," in perfect rhythm. It was like stepping into another universe. There were 20 of us in training, some college dropouts, some fresh grads, some like me, dreamers with something to prove. Our trainer was this tall, no-nonsense guy named Rakesh. He had the calm of someone who had heard every kind of complaint from every kind of customer, and he wore his headset like a crown. He stood in front of us and said, "This job isn't about knowing everything. It's about sounding like you do." And just like that, the pressure dropped. We learned scripts, we practiced tone, and we did mock calls. My first few tries? Terrible. I spoke too fast, messed up pronunciations, and once I even said, "Hello, thank you for problem with your calling." Yeah. That bad. But Rakesh never yelled. He just nodded and said, "Again." So I stayed late. practiced alone in the break room. Listened to how the top agents handled calls. One night, I recorded myself and played it back, cringed hard, but then I noticed something. I didn't sound scared anymore. By the end of the third week, Rakesh walked over to me and said, "Rishi, you are taking real calls from Monday." I blinked. "Me?" He smiled. "You've got the voice now. Just trust it." That Monday, I put on my headset, adjusted my mic, and waited for the beep. Beep. "Good evening, this is Rishi from customer support. How may I assist you today?" My heart raced as a woman from London started talking about her internet bill. I caught maybe 60% of her words, but I listened hard, took notes, and somehow guided her to the solution. At the end, she said, "Thanks, you've been lovely." Lovely? Me? After the call ended, I just sat there grinning like a fool. That night, I called Amma. I talked to someone in London today. She didn't understand what a call center really did, but she said, "So you helped her from all the way there?" "Yeah," I said. "I did." And for the first time, she sounded proud. Lunch breaks became the best part of my day. We'd all sit together, me, Arjun the beatboxer, Nisha the anime lover, and Zoya who was into tarot cards, and share weird customer stories. Some guy from New York just said, "You sound too happy to be real." Arjun laughed. Nisha nodded. Americans don't get our customer service energy. It confuses them. I felt like I'd found my people, awkward, brilliant, trying. Like me. I wasn't just speaking better. I was living better. One evening, Rakesh pulled me aside. "We've got an opening for a voice modulation workshop team. You want in?" "Why me?" He tapped his ear. "You listen. Most people just wait to talk." That line hit deep. I realized then, this job wasn't just about talking in English. It was about understanding people, especially when they were angry, frustrated, or sad. And somehow, I was good at making them feel heard. It felt powerful. Not in a superhero way, but in a quiet, behind-the-scenes kind of way. Like I was the voice people didn't know they needed. Every night before bed, I still talked to the mirror. Not because I needed the practice anymore, but because it reminded me where I came from. The silent kid. The boy with a voice only he could hear. Now, the world was listening. They say cities are loud. But sometimes, it's the quiet in between the noise that hits you the hardest. It had been almost 6 months since I got the job at the Mumbai call center. I was climbing up, slowly but surely. My accent had leveled out. My confidence was peaking. And my paycheck? Well, it wasn't massive, but it made me feel like I was finally contributing. Amma didn't need to borrow money from neighbors anymore. I was renting a small flat in Ghatkopar with 3 other guys from the office, eating way too many instant noodles, and learning how to sleep through the sound of local trains every night. Life was loud, messy, and exciting. But something was missing. It started with a phone call I missed from home. Then 2. Then 3. And finally, a message from my uncle. "Call your mother. She's not well." When I finally got through, Amma sounded like she had run a marathon. She said it was just a bit of a fever, but I could hear the tremble in her voice. She was trying to act strong, same old Amma. But a week later, I found out from my cousin Priya that it wasn't a fever. It was a mild stroke. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to interrupt my progress. That line haunted me. I sat on my narrow bunk, surrounded by the hum of fans and the smell of reheated dal, staring at my phone screen, thinking, what's the point of finding my voice if I can't use it when it matters most? The next day, I applied for leave. 3 days. That's all I could afford. But in those 3 days, I saw things differently. I saw Amma's left hand trembling slightly when she stirred chai. I saw how quiet the house had become without my late-night mirror monologues. I saw the unspoken loneliness in her eyes, like the silence she once raised me in had come back for her. I didn't cry. She didn't either. But we sat together one night, side by side, sipping weak tea and watching the fan spin above us. And she said, "You sound different now. You speak like you belong somewhere." I smiled. "I do," I said. "But this is still home." When I got back to Mumbai, something had shifted. The headset didn't feel the same. The calls felt heavier. Like each one pulled energy I didn't fully have. I still performed, still smiled through every, "May I place you on a brief hold," but my mind kept drifting, back to that moment with Amma under the spinning fan, back to the shaking in her hands. That's when I started thinking about voice in a new way. I had trained mine to sound professional, calm, clear. But what about the voice that says, "You should call more"? Or "You should have gone home sooner"? That voice didn't wear a headset. It just sat quietly inside me. Rakesh noticed the change. "You okay, Rishi?" "Yeah, just tired." He didn't push, but a few days later, he offered me something unexpected, a shift change to the evening team. Fewer calls, less pressure. "You'll have mornings free." That meant I could talk to Amma when she was most awake. Cook for myself. Go for a walk. Breathe. I took it. It felt like cheating at first. Like stepping back when I was supposed to be moving up. But slowing down gave me space. And in that space, something new started to grow. Her name was Leela. She worked in the tech support department on the floor above ours. I met her during a fire drill, of all things. We were standing near the back exit, half awake, annoyed, and bored. "I hate fire drills," she said, sipping coffee from a reusable cup. "Yeah," I replied. "But it's the only time I get fresh air for free." She laughed. And that was it. We started bumping into each other in the cafeteria, trading food, then playlists, then secrets. She told me she hated her degree but loved working. I told her I used to practice English in front of a cracked mirror. She didn't laugh. She just nodded and said, "That's actually really cool." We weren't dating, at least not officially, but we had our spots. The corner chai stall across the road. The shady bench near the metro station. The building rooftop when no one was looking. With her, I didn't need to speak perfectly. I just needed to speak honestly. One night, after a long shift, I told her about Amma's stroke. She didn't say, "I'm sorry," like everyone else did. She said, "Do you ever feel like you're being pulled into directions, home and everything else?" That hit hard. Because yes. Every day. But Leela reminded me that being torn wasn't failure. It was proof that I cared, that both parts of my life mattered. She said, "You know, your voice isn't just yours anymore. It belongs to your mom, your callers, your team, even me, a little." I didn't know what to say. So I just whispered, "Then I better not lose it." That same week, a surprise came through HR. I had been nominated for the quarterly Voice of the Month award. I wasn't even aiming for it, but apparently, a customer from Canada had written a glowing review. Said I sounded more like a friend than a help desk agent. That email? I read it at least 20 times. But I didn't tell Leela. Not yet. Because something bigger was on my mind. I had saved up some money, just enough for a basic smartphone and a Wi-Fi router. The next time I visited Nashik, I gave both to Amma. "Now we can video call," I said. She looked at the phone like it was a spaceship. But within a week, she was sending me blurry selfies and voice notes that said things like, "I made that sabzi you like," or "Today the neighbor's cow escaped again." And every time we spoke, I noticed her voice getting stronger too. Turns out, confidence is contagious. Even across cities. So yeah. The job, the headset, the mirror, none of it was ever just about English. It was about reclaiming something I didn't know I'd lost, my place in the world. One sentence at a time. It started with a knock. Not the poetic kind. Not fate tapping on your shoulder. Just an actual knock, on the bathroom door, by a nervous new hire named Sahil. "Bhaiya, you got a sec?" I stood there, half-drenched, toothbrush in hand. "Yeah?" He shifted awkwardly, eyes on the floor. I heard you used to be bad at English too." I froze. It wasn't the question that hit me. It was the honesty behind it. 6 months ago, that had been me, standing in a corridor, hoping someone would admit they weren't perfect either. "Yeah," I said. "Really bad." His shoulders dropped, like he'd been holding his breath all week. And just like that, the echo began. Sahil became the first of many. He was 19, fresh out of college, and spoke like he was always apologizing for it. Every time he answered a call, he sounded like he was afraid of being caught. "I mess up the RS," he once whispered. "They sound weird when I say them." "Good," I told him. "That means they're yours." "What?" "Your RS. Your sound. Your voice. Own it." He blinked. Then he grinned. Word got around. Apparently, I had become some kind of unofficial mentor. People started asking me to help with scripts, pronunciation, even pep talks before team presentations. At first, I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't a team lead. I wasn't a trainer. I was just a guy who used to talk to mirrors. But then I remembered what Leela said. "Your voice doesn't belong to just you anymore." So I made a choice. Every Saturday, after the last shift ended and the building emptied out, I started holding sessions in the break room. Nothing fancy. No PowerPoint. No lectures. Just stories, confidence drills, and this one weird exercise I invented where everyone had to read Harry Potter out loud in their worst English possible, on purpose. They called it Biryani English Night. And it worked. One night, Sahil pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. I stopped stuttering last week. First time in years. It just stopped. Mid-call. I didn't know what to say. So I just nodded, and we both stood there in silence until he whispered, "You are the first person who ever made me feel like I didn't have to fix myself to be heard." That's when I realized something. Helping others find their voice was healing parts of me I didn't even know were broken. Around that time, Leela and I had our first fight. It wasn't loud. No yelling. Just distance. She had applied for a job in Hyderabad, tech role, bigger pay, better growth. I didn't know until she casually mentioned it over tea. "You didn't tell me," I said. "I didn't want you to feel like I was leaving you," she replied. That hit harder than any feedback call I'd ever taken. We sat in silence for what felt like an hour. Then she said something that brought everything into focus. "You used to be scared of being seen. Now you are scared of being left behind." And she was right. But that wasn't her fault. Or mine. It was just life, stretching us both. She got the job. Moved 2 months later. But before she left, she came to my final Saturday session. She didn't say much, just sat at the back, sipping chai and watching people laugh through their mispronunciations. After everyone left, she stood up, walked over, and said, "You built something here." I smiled. "So did you." We hugged. No promises, no tears. Just mutual respect for what we'd been to each other. That night, I went home and finally opened an email I'd been avoiding. It was from HR again. "Leadership Development Program. Congratulations, Rishi." I had been nominated, this time officially, for a 6-month mentorship training program. If I accepted, I'd be trained to become a coach for the company's nationwide call centers. It meant travel. It meant speaking in front of crowds. It meant becoming the person I had once looked for in a break room. I clicked. Weeks passed. Sahil got promoted to QA. Our Saturday group grew from 4 people to 12. And I started traveling to Pune, then Chennai, then back to Mumbai, training fresh voices, nervous voices, curious voices. In every batch, I saw versions of myself, hiding behind thick accents, awkward pauses, and self-doubt. And in every session, I reminded them, "You don't have to speak perfect English. You just have to speak like you mean it. Because you, your story, your journey, your sound, is enough." One afternoon, in a tiny office in Hyderabad, a girl named Mansi raised her hand. She had been quiet the whole session, barely participating. When I called on her, she stood up, shook slightly, and asked, "Do you think someone like me can become a trainer too?" The room went silent. And I smiled. "Absolutely," I said. "You just did your first training moment. Everyone in here heard you. And they'll remember your question more than any answer I gave today." She cried. Just a little. And so I went back to Mumbai a month later. Same flat. Same chai stall. But something felt different. The boy who once whispered apologies into a cracked mirror was now being invited to speak at the Voice Summit, a national conference for customer service professionals. I stood backstage, heart pounding, palms sweaty. Leela sent me a message 5 minutes before I went on. You've always had a voice, Rishi. Now go make it echo. So I did. I walked onto the stage, looked out at hundreds of faces, and told them a story. About a scared kid in Nashik. About late-night YouTube videos. About a trembling Amma under a spinning fan. And about finding power in imperfection. Your voice, I said, is your fingerprint. No one else has it. So stop trying to sound like the world. Start sounding like you. The crowd stood up. Not all at once, but slowly, like a ripple of recognition. That moment, that was mine. A few weeks after the summit, I visited Nashik again. Amma was better. She had joined a bhajan group and now video called me twice a week. That night, she asked me to help her set up her new phone ringtone. Choose something nice, she said. Something that sounds like you. I picked a clip of my voice summit speech. She didn't say anything. Just smiled. And in that moment, I knew. The journey wasn't about mastering English. It was about learning to show up fully, even when you feel like you are not enough. Because somewhere, someone's listening. And sometimes, the person who needs your voice most is you.